Hello. Now, I am a mover, okay? So I'm not one who stands still because she told you. I was incarcerated for so long, and I had to sit still and be still. And so once I learned what freedom was and choices and empowerment, and I learned what a route to some new freedoms were, I like to move around. So if you see me moving, that's what I'm doing. But first of all, I do want to thank you all for inviting me. I don't know, this has just been a mighty, mighty moment in my life. I don't even know why I want to cry right now, but I do for some reason. And I believe because in this last 3 or 4 years, I've had such deeper revelations about my life and about the day I was born and the day I realized why I was born and why everything in between those times has mattered to this moment. And it was already there, and it was already predestined, and I just had to show up. And I think so often we don't realize that. I think that there's so much going on in the world today, and so much distraction, and so many obstacles, and so much despair, that people just become hopeless. And when I see a room like this, I think that I'm also emotional, because I know that when women get together, the devil is mad as hell. Because he knows that we are the incubators to life, that we bring it forth in ways that nobody else can. And that's why he came after us in the Garden of Eden, because he wanted to destroy us and make us not worthy of who we really are. And so we have always had to push through a little harder, it seems like, since then. But what I've come to realize is that it doesn't matter how you started, it matters how you finish. And so for me, my story starts, as Beth said, foster care, but, foster homes and, a sexual abuse and imprisonment, mental health. I was put in a mental hospital at the age of 12. And I now know a new revelation that came not too long ago about that after my play. And I think about when I go back into that place, and I remember being put in Longview State Hospital. They were just doing this new drug, and I believe that they needed young people to test it. And so it was Thorazine, and they wanted a study center to bring people in. They had just created it, and they wanted to bring people in to kind of do a study. We do it now in research. Y'all seen how they pay people to do it. But back then, in 1972, they didn't have that. And so at 12 years old, I'm sitting there just because I ran away from home. Nobody once asked, why are you running away? It didn't matter to them why. It was just that I was. And they found an opportunity to put me in this study. And I was there, I was supposed to only be there for 30 days. And I ended up being there for 27 months. On Thorazine 4 times a day, along with shock treatment. Because they were looking to see how they could change the cognitive thinking of someone. And seeing how the medicine does with body weight and how much you get. And I just remember that I have a friend now that's out there in homelessness and mental illness, and she was in that study with me. And she never did come back to herself. And I look at my life today, and I think, why did I come back or never go away? Because I'm going to be honest with you, I can't remember a time in the moment that they could control me for real. But, if I wasn't sleeping, only when I was sleeping. But if I was woke, I had this resilience about my thinking that I wasn't going to let it win. And I know that today some of that came because how God made me, but some of it became because I was so stubborn about and so strong-willed about how I wasn't going to let nobody hurt me again. I made a prophecy to myself that nobody was going to hurt me. So it didn't matter the situation I was in. It didn't matter the people who came at me. I was always going to win. But see, what I realized is that That's not rational thinking either. Because how can you possibly be winning and you're in a mental hospital? How can you possibly be winning when you're wrenched and ripped with pain? How can you be winning? But there's something inside of me that made me believe I was. And I know now that it was the trauma and the pain, the lost identity. I know it was those things. Those were factors that someone else chose. But what I've come to realize in a new revelation of my own life, that there had to come a time, a very pivotal time in my life, that I had to take self-responsibility for the choices I was making. Because my mother didn't put me in prison just because she gave me away at birth. The man who abused me didn't make me a thief and a drug addict and a drug dealer. The judge that put me in the mental hospital didn't make me rebellious. They just gave me opportunity to choose that way. And I chose it because I was so angry with everybody except me. And what I have had to learn over the last, since 1992, is when my last imprisonment. And let me just share with you what happened to me. Now, like we all got our stories, right? Mine was not, a lot of people think that I was in prison and I found Jesus. No, that's not what happened. I was in prison many, many times, and I had many, many experiences. And what I've come to realize is that Christ was always, through the Spirit, trying to lead me to truth. I just was too blind to see it. Because my own selfishness and my own pride and my own pain was bigger than for me to see than the passion that I needed to know. So let me tell you, so this last time I had a 3 to 15 year sentence. I was in Hamilton, Ohio. I was a drug dealer, and they had just created the law when you sell crack cocaine. And they were saying that if you are selling within a school district, you are automatically, see, the systems of this world is not broken. It's created to hold you bound to what it does. So they created a law, and they said if you sell within a school district, you will get a certain amount of time. Well, I just happened, by coincidence, not by choice, to be selling drugs within a school district. And so when I got sentenced, they gave me a 3 to 15 year sentence. I had did prison before. It was no biggie. Come on. You know, some of you get up this morning, brush your teeth, it's the same thing, right? You just know what to do. You put your clothes on, you know what to do. Well, that was my life. I knew how to go to prison. I didn't know how to be free. So going to prison was natural for me. It may not be natural for you, but it was natural for me. And so I settle in my little cell. I settle into my little dormitory, and I'm good. I'm gonna spy out the land. I'm gonna see who I can manipulate, who I can, work the system within the system. But you know what? Something was different this time. I couldn't seem to find that comfort place. I was in Marysville, Ohio, at the ORW Reformatory for Women's Prison. And I just couldn't seem to find that comfort zone this time. I knew what the circle looked like. We walk around that circle all the time telling them same war stories. But I just couldn't find that comfort zone. So I made some decisions to still try to control my life. I'm going to find a way to not be with the people. So I made some decisions that was irrational, but I made them. I began to fake seizures. So I could go to the reformatory, not in the infirmity, where I could go in the hospital and I could be comfortable and I can watch TV and I don't have to do nothing, because that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to fake seizures. I'm going to fall on the floor and the ground and flop out like a fish and, and do all those kind of crazies. Because if I'm already crazy, right, I might as well act that way. And so I did that a couple times and it worked. So I'm like, I done found a way to do this 3 to 15. I'm still in control. So I'm in there, and next thing I know, they was talking about moving me out of the hospital zone. I was like, oh, no, they can't do that. So I flopped down one more time. And so when the emergency people came to the prison, they immediately put me on IV, and then they immediately put intravenously Valium into my system. And it created me to stop breathing. So I was on life support system for 7 days. The doctor said I had probably died for about a minute and a half, that they did not get a pulse, and then they brought me back. So that made them say, well, let me do a few more testing. Now I'm getting ready to be exposed. See, I played my hand. Sometimes you overplay your hand. And so they said, let's do a little more testing. Let's do some brain waves. Let's do this. Let's see if the epilepsy, what kind she's having. And then all of a sudden, they came back to me and they had a psychologist with them. And they said, I think these are psychosomatic seizures. We found no unpatterned waves in your brain. We don't think that you're having seizures, Miss Lucretia. We don't think that. I'm like, well, I know what I'm feeling. And they were like, you are not having seizures. And if you continue this behavior, I am telling you, we're going to let you flip and flop until you get tired. But we are not going to, so you need to find another way, because these seizures are not real. I knew they wasn't real. But I just like, oh my God, I've gotten exposed again. So I was like, okay, so what does that mean? They say you'll go back to the prison, you'll go back into the infirmary, you'll stay there until we get you mobilized because you did have a traumatic experience. But after that, it's, you're going to be just like the rest of the population. Like, dang. So I went on, and I'm just telling you, it's so amazing that I come to a realization now that sometimes death has to come for life to be birthed. And I know now in my own life that moment was a pivotal moment for me. Because by this time I'd been in my 15-year sentence about 7 months. And I get into my population, about a month later, I'm laying in my bed, and out of nowhere, I don't know if I'm asleep or if I'm dreaming, but I hear this loud voice inside of me, and it's saying to me, you'll never have definition of meaning till you come back to the source. So I wake up thinking, right, like somebody's playing tricks on me. Or now I'm really hearing voices. And now they're not gonna believe me because they already said I'm psychosomatic. So who can I tell? Because if I go tell them I'm hearing voices, they're going to think I'm faking because I've been exposed. Oh my God, I'm in trouble. See, that's what it gets when you cry wolf too many times. So I'm like, okay, I'll go back to sleep. It wakes me up again. So then I'm thinking my roommates, I have 3 roommates. I'm thinking they're playing tricks on me. So I look over to their beds, they seem sound asleep. So I'm like, okay, I don't know what that is, but it's feeling real. It really does. It just feels like somebody is whispering in my ear, saying this to me. And so as I proceed on, I went to sleep and I got up the next morning. I'm walking the same circle. And I've been in prison, mind you, by this time, over about 16 years. So I know what barbed wire looks like. I know that it's there, but I'm going to tell you something. That day after I had that moment and I walked that circle, out of nowhere, I saw the barbed wire. It was like I saw it for the first time. Have you ever been riding down the street and something's always been there, but for some reason you wasn't present enough to see it? Or it became such a condition you just ignored it? I believe that's what had happened. That it had become such a condition of my life that I never saw it. But that day, I saw it. But I didn't just see the barbed wire. I saw this 5-year-old little girl just kind of wandering in midair. So now, come on, I'm seeing things. I just heard things last night. I'm seeing things this morning. Something ain't right. And so I'm like, that looks like me. And as I was standing there, I kept saying, oh my God. And then out of nowhere, I heard that voice again inside me. And it said the same thing. It said, if you don't come back to the source, you will never have definition of meaning. And I remember saying to myself in that moment, Lord, I don't know if you real, if people just say you real. God, I don't know you like that. But I need you not to let me lose my mind up in here. Because if I lose my mind, I may not ever get out. So please don't let me lose my mind. I am seeing things. I am hearing voices. I remember when I was 12, that's what the people did at Longview. It didn't look like a pretty picture. I do not want that to be my reality. And so out of nowhere, it just kind of went away. 2 weeks later, out of nowhere again. Now, we know God is not a nowhere kind of God. Come on. But out of nowhere, I had a public defender. How many of us know about public defenders? Most of us who are in the criminal justice world call them public pretenders because we believe they pretend to take on our case and do the best version that we could get. But usually, they take on our case because they're assigned our case and the state is paying them, so they do the law. Does that make sense? And so that was just my perception at that particular time. And so out of nowhere, my public defender, who I thought was a pretender, called the prison and asked if they would give me a message. And the message was this: ask my name was Turner at that time, ask Lucretia Turner, number 82801, because they don't recognize you much as your name as much as they do your number. And he said, ask her to give me a call. She needs to call her lawyer. It's important. So my case manager takes me to the room. I call him, and he says to me, I'm going to be filing a motion for you. I said, what kind of motion? He said, the kind that the law just changed about super shock probation. I said, what does that entail? Super shock probation. What does that entail? And he's like, well, what it looks like is that for first-time offenders, they put them in prison and then they shock them out, thinking it's going to change their lives. And I'm thinking, the only shock I know is the one that they did in Longview. No, that's not going to work for me. And he kept saying to me, no, I'm going to need you to write a letter to the judge. I'm going to need you to share with the judge exactly who you are, why you've been to prison. I said, but I'm not a first offender. I have 35 felonies. So how can I qualify for that? He's like, just trust me. I'm like, trust you? Because you got to realize when you've been through trauma, trust is not your deciding factor. You don't trust people. You trust you. Because you only can protect you against everybody else. And so in that moment, I was like, yeah, okay, I'll write it. So I go to the yard with all my friends, you know, like y'all all friends and sisters in here, and this is your community. Well, we had our community in prison. So I go to my community on the yard. I tell them what happened. They looked at me and said, girl, you know he's setting you up to fail. He set me up to fail? Do you think I could be any much of a failure from this point? So how's he setting me up to fail? And they said, well, girl, he's just getting your hopes up high. Girl, that's not going to happen for you. I was like, you probably right. And a couple of them was like, girl, I wouldn't even write the letter. I was like, you right. I'm not begging nobody for nothing. And I am telling you, out of nowhere, 2 or 3 days later, I'm sitting there and I wake up and I'm with this pen and paper. And I'm writing this letter. And I'm going to be honest with you, when I wrote it, it was not honestly I was like, what do I have to lose? I wasn't thinking that, you know, I would be standing here 20-something years later. I was just like, what do I have to lose? And so the amazing part for me was that I wrote the letter, long story short, sent it off. The judge, I had 3 different judges. Because, see, I just don't know how to do things just like one thing. So I had I had 3 different judges, one in Butler County, one in Warren County, and one in Hamilton County. Because, see, I just like to travel and spread my love all over the world. That's just what I like to do. And so the judge he was making the motion was from Butler County, Judge Anthony Vallon. And God bless his soul. And it's so amazing because he was one of the hardest judges in the county. And he did a PSI. A PSI is pre-sentence investigation for those of us who never know about incarceration. And they pre-sentence you, they give this report and they look. And so the probation officers said, no, she's a lost cause. You know, no, she's not a good candidate for this. She is, look at her felony. And the judge kept saying, well, I don't know, it's something about this that I feel like I need to do it. And then he said that. He said, they kept saying, no. He said, well, I'll tell you what, let's just bring her back and see what happens. So they brought me back to Butler County. They told me to pack my stuff. I was going back to my county, went back to my county, got in front of Judge Vallon. He looked at me and he said, why should I do this? And I said, why should you not? And he said, well, we could debate that all day long. He said, but I need you to tell me why I should. And I looked at him and I said, to be honest, all my life, everybody that made me a promise broke it. So I'm not going to sit here and promise you that I'm going to do anything different. But what I will tell you is if someone would teach me how, I would be willing to learn. And Judge Vallon looked at me and he looked at the prosecutor and he said, I'm going to grant her super shock probation, though she disqualifies for it. And I am telling you, he let me out that day. I was out for 1 week. And out of nowhere, the sheriff knocks on my door. My sister's door, because I don't have a door. You know what I mean? When you get out of prison, you don't have a door. And so I go to my sister's house. The sheriff knocks on the door. And he says, I have to incarcerate you. Because we have to be concurrently with the judges in Warren County. And Butler County has to concur with this decision. Because their sentence was running into Judge Vallon's sentence. So off to prison I go again. And in that moment, I'm going to be honest with you, I lost hope again. Here I was, disappointed, let down, excited, but saying, this don't work. And I'll never forget that I got out of prison on the 28th day of June, 1992. I went back to prison on July the 7th, and on July the 26th of that same year, 1992, in the same year, Judge Nadel here in Hamilton County, Norval Nadel, and Judge Powers in Warren County concurred. And so I went to Hamilton County for that paperwork, and Warren County sent theirs over, and on August the 9th, 1992, I was released to the Talbot, not to the Talbot House, but I was released back out into society. I realized in that moment, honestly, I didn't know what I was going to do. That life just kept happening for me, right? And I needed to do something. So I went to my probation officer and I asked her to help me. And I'll be honest with you, she looked at me and said, what am I supposed to do? I said, aren't you supposed to help me? And she's like, well, normally I'm running after criminals. Criminals are not coming to me asking me for help. I said, but if you don't give me the help I need, I will be the next criminal running from you. And for some reason, I really want to make this work. And I really don't know how to do it. I'm not as educated. I'm smart. I'm intelligent. I got wits. But I'm not able to take the tools that they say you need to reconstruct a life. So I'm going to need some help. And she went to her supervisor, and when she went, he came out, and he said to me, if you're sincere, we're going to call the Talbot House in Cincinnati. If you're sincere, if they can accept you, it's one condition. You'll have to be incarcerated again to go there. Now, I'm going to go somewhere. Y'all remember that point. Put a pin right there. So I went the next day. They locked me up in the county jail. I had to wait 6 weeks for a bed. But let me tell you something. See, there's a difference between doing time and spending time. All my life I done time. Those 6 weeks I spent time. And I read that Bible from Genesis to Revelation as much as I could for those 6 weeks. And I'm not going to sit here and say to you that I still believed, but I knew that there were stories in there that reminded me of me. And there was something greater than me that was pushing me to a greater moment. There was too many opportunities that I had that just people just don't get them. And I don't remember getting them ever before. And I just remember saying, when I get to the Talbert House, I am going to do what's best for me. So when I got there on the 28th day of September 1992, I took all my people at the table, because let me just tell you about community. They always like to know your business. What is that about? It don't matter if you're in the church, if you're in the jailhouse, if you're in the Talbot House, they always want to know your business. So I walk in, and they all ask, why are you here? And I said, the same reason you here, I hope. Because I'm here to do right by me. And I hope you are too. Because if you're not, I know how to do bad all by myself. And if you're not for the right thing, stay away from me. Because I'm about the business of trying to get what's necessary for my life. I'm done. I have an opportunity that most people dream of getting. And I'm going to take advantage of it. And I am telling you, in November, a woman from that was a facilitator took me to church at Christ Emmanuel Christian Fellowship, Michael E. Dantley on Main Street. I got there. People were standing in line. I've never seen anything like it. Who stands in line to get in church? I've seen people stand in line to go to a concert, to go to the clubs, but I've never seen them to go to the, Thanksgiving after sale. But I never seen anyone stand in line to go to church. So I asked this young lady, I said, what are they doing? She said they have 3 services. It's a small building. And so this service is at 10:30. So the 8:30 has not let out. So we're waiting in line. And I said, to go to church? And she's like, yeah, that's what we do every Sunday. I said, and people actually standing, it's cold. She's like, yeah. I was like, okay. Then I thought in my head, I probably won't come back here if I got to stand outside. This don't look very appetizing to me. So I go in. Bishop Dantley is preaching. And I know now today, and I said this at my play, and I realized that there's a kairos and a chronos moment, if we all understand that. There's a chronological and a spiritual time, and they kiss. They're thrown together, and they make life like a window that opens up for you. And then you get a chance to come through that window or stay on that other side. And I believe for me, my chronos and my kairos came together. And I was in that service. And I remember walking, I don't even know how I got to the front. I don't even remember the altar call. But I was in the front, and they were laying hands on me. And I fell forward. And I am telling you, from that day on, I walked up there, and I knew that whatever these people had, I wanted it. I didn't understand it. They were doing strange, crazy stuff. But it couldn't be no different than crack cocaine, stealing, homosexuality, abuse. It couldn't be no more crazier than that. And I had tried everything else. Why not try this? That day, on the 28th day of November 1992, I gave my life to the Lord. And I am telling you, from every catechism class, from every new beginning class, I committed to everything I could because I needed to change the patterns of my thinking. I needed God to change my heart position. I needed him to change my mindset. I needed him to change my cravings to say what I couldn't do so I can become something I never was. So I went to everything. I ate it up. I ate the whole cone. Everything. I tasted and seen that the Lord is good. And as I can proceeded on, about 5 years in the process, I'm minding my own business. By this time, I'm married. My son, who had been taken from me based on my choices, was out of my life, had lost custody of him. His father vowed that I'd never see him again. So I had lost hope in that. And so out of all of that, I was telling this story over at the table. I had seen God work this miracle by getting me out of prison. But you always want to push the envelope with God. Come on. So I just needed a new miracle. So I went to Bishop. I never forget, I went to Bishop and I said, my son's father said he would never let me see my son again. So I'm looking for some spiritual stuff, right, that he's going to tell me or do. I said, so what should I do? And he looked at me, he said, I think you should just pray. You should pray and ask the Lord to change the heart and position of his heart towards you. I'm like, that's all you got? You have nothing else? Like, no hocus pocus, abracadabra, no system, no methods, just pray? And that was in April 93. He's like, that's all I got, Lucretia. I got nothing else. That's the best thing I can give you now. Pray. And I am telling you, I got married in October of 1993. Had not seen my son for 7 years. Did not send my son or his father invitation to my wedding. I'm sitting in my dressing room, putting on my makeup, getting ready for my dress, and a knock comes on the door. We don't open it. We still don't open it. So someone said, maybe we should get that. And I was like, no, I don't want nobody to see me. No. I've waited for this moment all my life. No. And then someone said, please open the door. It's important. I have a gift for Lucretia. And I'm like, well, put it under the table. Put it on the table. Give it to the coordinator. Just no. They said, no, this gift cannot go anywhere but at this door. So I was like, oh, God, just open the door, y'all. And so when they opened the door, the person said, ask Lucretia to come to the door. So I get up and I walk to the door. And there stood my 9-year-old son, which let me know that prayer does work. And that Bishop had given me the best answer. So it connected me to prayer and how to communicate to God and how to know that he can be trusted and that however he works, even if the eyes can't see it and the ears can't hear it, that he has a way to move hearts and man beyond measure. And so I could barely get dressed because I wanted to know so bad how this miracle happened. Because I couldn't just be satisfied that it was a miracle. So I'm like, now I'm ready to get married here. Let me put on the dress because I really want to know. And so we go through the formalities of the wedding. You know how they go. And so afterwards, we're sitting at the reception. I see my son. I don't marry my son's father. I marry another man. So I go to my son's father, and I say to him, how'd you get here? And he said, honestly, it was a miracle. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, your aunt saw my mom. They lived in the same town. Your aunt told my mom that you were getting married. My mom sent me a copy of the invite, and I went to our son and asked him, was he ready to meet his mom? And our son said, perhaps. And he said, so as we got closer to the day, our son came to me and said, I think I'm ready. He said, so that's how we got here. So that lets me know that God is still in the miracle working business. Amen? Amen. And so to tie this all up, out of that, married, got my son back in my life, just everything is just, life is good. I'm working. I ain't going to prison. Blah, 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 blah. Life is good. I love the Lord as best I know how. You know, because we learn to love him line up on line, precept on precept, here a little, there a little. So it's not like we just fall deeply in love with Jesus. We fall in love with him gradually, and as we see our walk mature with him, to know that he can be trusted, and that but it's not even about, I'm learning in this season, it's not about me trusting him anymore. I'm in an exchange. He wants to know he can trust me. See, he's saying, your trusting me, Lucretia, is all good. But in the end of this thing, I did my part. I need to know you're going to do yours. And now I'm in this relationship with him that he's asking and saying, can I trust you, Lucretia? Can I trust you? If I tell you to go left, will you go left? If I nudge you right, will you go right? If I nudge you to stay still, will you sit still? Or will you just always do whatever you want to do when you want to do it and justify it by grace and mercy? Or can I trust you? And that's where my life is right now. And so in all of that, I am telling you, I was minding my own business in a worship service. Life is good. And out of nowhere, I had not heard the voice I had heard in prison. Until one day in worship, I heard this voice. It sounded the same, and it sounded like me. But it was telling me things that I would never tell myself. I don't know what your voice sounds like. It'd be the wind, but mine sounds like me and sounds like it got a lot of wisdom. But it tells me stuff that I would never tell myself, even when I'm at my ugliest. I would not admit to that. I will not say that to me. But when that voice comes, and it comes in a loving way, and it compels me to my knees, and it breaks me into tears, and it breaks my heart, I need to put it back together again. And when that voice came, he said, would you be willing to let me lead you back into the darkness to help other people out? Because that is true freedom. I was like, hecky no. No. I am not doing that. I know what those people are like. They were me. And in 6 years, I know I'm not ready to go deal with that people. And because he's a loving God, he doesn't force us. He invites us. He knocks at the door, and if you let him come in, he'll sup with you. But he is not going to be an intrusive person to make you do anything. And I am telling you, I went on about my business for 6 months. Went to a women's conference. That's why I said things happen when you get with women. Went to a women's conference in South Carolina with Ayanna Locke and who else was it? And Marion Browning. Come on. And I went there, and we had probably 1,000 women in that auditorium. And Ayanna Locke, out of nowhere, saw my red shirt. Now, how did she do that? Tell me there's not a God. How did she do that? All these people other people having red shirts. But out of nowhere, she called me, and she said, you, come here. And she said, yeah, you come here. Just stand right there. And she told a few other women to get around me. And she began to speak in my life. She said, the Lord has asked and invited you to a journey, and you have told him no. This is how she said to me. She said, but I am telling you that it's just like the wedding, that if you don't go, that he will find somewhere else to go to the highways and the byways to bring them in. But he has anointed you and appointed you to do it. That everything you went through was for such a moment like this. That was in 1995. I went home from that conference. I wrote out the vision of having the courage to change. And it just poured out of me. I saw the houses. I saw the women. I didn't have a dime, but I had hope. And so I wrote it all up, and I took it to Bishop Danley, because evidently the church is supposed to do this. And Bishop Danley gave it back to me 6 months later and said, no, you've been called. See, we're always looking for an escape route. So if the church had did it, I wouldn't have to. But he said, I believe God's called you to do it. And out of that moment birthed Having the Courage to Change, which is a women's recovery program that disciples women from the darkness to the light. We don't make disciples. What we do, the Bible says that we are to go to all nations and make disciples. But what we do is we give opportunities, and we give them information, and we give them Jesus, and we give them the word, and we give them Bible studies, and we love on them, and we cry with them, and we hold them accountable, and we hold them responsible, and we share with them, and we love them again, and they fall apart again, and we bring them in again, and we just keep bringing, because eventually the same thing that Jesus did for me, even when I didn't see him, even when I didn't know him, he was making in me a new heart. And so he showed me that the best person is me first, Lucretia, and me working through you with them can change their lives. And so in that moment, we started, my husband and I, in our own home. I had worked hard. Can I tell you this? I was a nursing assistant. I worked hard to save up $2,000. It was a lot of money for me, especially, honest money. It was a lot of money for me. And I'll never forget when I heard and felt the impression of the Lord, and I know it now, because again, like I told y'all, I can't tell myself stuff like he tell me. And I heard him say, before you ask anybody for anything, you better sow into the same ground you're believing for. So I went to the bank and took all of my money out and bought furniture and did everything I could to make that a very comfortable home for 5 unrelated women. And we opened up in January of 1997. My husband was outnumbered by women. And in that moment, in April of 97, City Gospel Mission, and the next year, after we'd done a whole year, when we did a whole year, City Gospel Mission opened up a house as well called New Beginning on Gately. And so they were running into some areas. They had always served men. They wanted to, kind of expand their territory and go out to women. And so Laura Haas, who was at that time the director, had heard about me. And she told Ed Perrine and a couple of other people, and they came to knock on my door at 1926 Kenny and asked for me and said, we heard about a girl that's over here in Evanston doing great work with women who have the experience, have the authority, have the knowledge, and we want to know, can we partner together? And I was like, what you get? No, sit down. Tell me what you're working with. And the neat thing about City Gospel Mission, and I thank God because God knew I needed the next level. Again, another miracle. He knew I needed it. I was given all that I had. I was there all the time with those women, but I needed to have some sense of space. And he sent City Gospel Mission so we could partner together. I could run ministry and they could do what they do best. And together we could change the world. That was in 1999 we partnered and merged. It's been 20 years. It's been the most exciting time of my life. They have let me, I know that God used City Gospel Mission. It's like how he'll cover you to help you grow up. He knew in that moment of my life that I needed, that I had zeal and didn't have knowledge, that I had willingness, but didn't have all the wherewithal to do what needed to be done. So he sent me a helpmate through City Gospel Mission. And I'm telling you, it has helped me grow up in areas, expanded my territory, allowed me to expand my mind, let me get my heart changed in a safe place. It has been my community where I've been challenged, I've been encouraged, but I know that God used City Gospel Mission to parent me into leadership. And I am so grateful. They have never, the one thing the Bishop Danley said when I got ready to merge is this one, it's only one thing that I asked that y'all not do is clip her wings. Because her wings have been clipped on many levels. And she has just grown them back. So as long as you don't clip her wings, I believe she'll fly and soar greater for God than anyone. Because she knows what it's like to not have and then have again. And I am telling you, they have not clipped my wings. And just now, in a moment, we are in a process of now, it's really called Gerda, but we pronounce it Gathi, but it's Gerda, because it's German. We are getting ready now. And I know this is God, because I've always seen this campus like a college campus. I've always seen it on Gerda. I always seen that we would have the whole street. I always felt like the whole street would be ours. I didn't know a long time ago that the board members saw that the same way, that they were going to see ways of, buying properties and doing stuff on Gerda. They, because City Cure was on Gerda, and, so it was all there. It was all predestined. And in the last 6 months, I've been working on, I see a vision and I see a campus. And I see where the women can live together in a structured living as they do now. But I want to see them be able to live in certain levels of homes, like live in orientation and then live in dealing with their lives in another level of stabilization and then dealing with their other lives in internal restoration. And then being able to go and transition into semi-independent living. And then launch into independent living. And then live in a community that has embraced them for who they are, will love them and hold them accountable and move into their total independent apartments. Well, I have a chance right now, and I have been working with Zeke and working with Jennifer and working with Platt Design, and I have designed this whole piece that I saw on paper. And I am seeing God do some miraculous things. And this is the amazing part. I'm on vacation. And this is when you ask God. I said, I need a sign. Am I going in the right direction? Because you got to deal with zoning. You got to deal with so many things. And I've been a fighter all my life. I'm going to be honest. There gets a time in your life you just kind of want to sit still and not have to fight everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, Lord, I have had to fight through my childhood, through my young adulthood. I had to fight to get where I am. Can I just get a place and rest? He said, yes, when you're dead and you meet me face to face. I'm like, dang, okay. So I said, well, Lord, give me a sign if I should take, and Zeke, of course, he ain't never going to take the easy way. He's like, now, Lucretia, don't you let me discouraged because you got to do zoning. I'm like, Zeke. Let my daddy talk to me. He know how to talk even better than you. I said, so I went before the Lord and I said, I need you to give me a sign if this is the right way. Should I have, I should do it. Tell me. Lord, you know me and you we cool like that. You just tell me what to do, I'll do it, because I want you to trust me. And out of nowhere, I get a call from the neighbors on Gerda. And she says, Lucretia? And I was like, yeah. She says, is this a good time to talk? And I said, how'd you get my number? She's like, well, I called down to City Ghost Mission and they gave me your number. I was like, okay, hi, it's a good time to talk. She's like, well, what I was thinking, I wanted to ask you, we want to do a community outing on Gerda, and we want you all to be a big part of it. She said, and so we're having a meeting on the 16th, all the new owners, and we want you there because we want to hear what you want to do on Gerda. I was like, what? She's like, yes. She said, we want to get the food, we want to have a street party, and we want to talk about how we want to set up our community. And we think you guys are such an asset to it, and so we want to make sure you stay there. Was that not my daddy? Does he not work miracles? And so on the 16th, we're meeting. So I told Roger, I want to put my stake in Gerda because God has spoken and he is saying yes. And the neighbors are embracing us. And so we are going to build 3 new homes, renovate the old homes into apartments and independent living so we can have a community of people who look different, come from different status, come from different walks of life. And so we can all come together, embrace each other as a neighbor and a community. I am telling you, did I see this 28 years ago? No. Did God see it? When I was in my mother's womb, before I breathed my first breath, he saw it. I just had to catch up with it. And I am still running after the one who loves me, who captures my heart, who calls me his daughter, who I call him my daddy. I've never had a father as good as this one, and I would not do anything to give him up. I want to thank you all for believing my story. It's my truth. I'm sticking to it.